Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Open Discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is.
Cheryl.
And today we're going to be talking about The Man from Uncle. It's a movie that came out a couple of years ago. I want to say 2015. It's a Guy Ritchie film with Armie Hammer and Henry Cavill. It is on Amazon Prime. Or no, I think it's on. No, we saw it on
HBO.
HBO Max. Yeah, it's on HBO Max. So if you guys haven't seen it, you can go and check it out there and then come back and see what we have to say about it because we are going to be going into spoiler territory. So consider this your warning. But let's go ahead and jump right into it. This actually was a movie I had planned for a while ago to watch, and I think I forgot about it because I've liked Guy Ritchie over the years, and at one point in my film background, he was my favorite director because one of my favorite movies that he ever did was a movie called Snatch, and so I really enjoyed Guy Ritchie's like method of storytelling and how he wanted his movies to be edited together and things like that. And so I have been meaning to actually see this movie, but I think when it came out, I didn't hear positive things, and so I was because I was like didn't hear positive things. I was like, all right, I guess I'll skip over it. And so yes, that look that you have is exactly where the story is leading. Um, where when I finally got to sit down and watch it, I could not stop smiling. When I'm sitting and watching the movie, I realize like maybe halfway into the movie, I'm like, I'm still smiling because I'm having so much fun watching this movie. And I was like, okay, we'll go more into this later, but I'm like, there's probably legit reasons why people don't consider this to be a good movie, but I feel like I'm just like back in the old days. I'm just watching a movie and having a good time, and I was like, and I kind of just feel like I need this right now. So, point being, spoiler, I enjoyed the film.
Spoiler,
Um,
it was good. Um, don't mind the title of the show. Um, I mean, I'm actually interested to know what people didn't like about it because I have to say, this is one of the more beautiful films that I've seen.
mm,
Like doing our show where it's just like visually beautiful and like the choices that are made, like it could easily have been a very different film just based on the content of it, but what makes it stand out to me is the way it was shot and the things that were decided to be focused on, because it's kind of another one of those not too complex of a story, but then the way it's shot, the way the editing is done. I know you mentioned that editing, and just like the choices that are made, in the sense of like I mentioned, what to focus on,
mm,
is what makes it so appealing to me. I'm trying to think of like a good example of that, but there was this one part where it's like a montage of them like taking people out and they're breaking into the complex and stuff like that, and like part of me was like, wait, I kind of want to watch
see
this.
this? Yeah.
Why are they making like a montage? But it's not even like I mean, it is a montage, but it's an interesting montage because you get to see, sorry, the whole thing, but you're only
Mm-hmm.
seeing the most exciting parts of like the
Right.
fight. So it's kind of like watching a fight scene, but you only get to see the punches.
Yeah.
and and like my first reaction to that was like, I want to see that. Why are we not getting to see it? And then like I realized it's because like actually this doesn't matter. Like we don't need to see this. Like there's gonna be another fight later. So and there was so. Um, it's kind of stuff like that, and even like things that are said or things that we get to see, it's a little off, it's different, it's not like your basic film, it's your basic story shown in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's what's really cool about how they use those editing moments where they're saying, "Yes, we know this is cool and we're going to make it look cool through this editing, but this isn't the point. So we're going to show you that stuff is happening because we need this to tell our story, but it's not important for our story. So we're gonna hurry up and get to the part that actually is important. So I'm like, okay, that's a choice, but it's also different. And the thing that got me with this film was that you said that this would pair nicely with the other film that we're going to talk about later on our Twitch channel, which if you guys want to see us over there, Twitch/C3 Films, so it'd be great to see you guys over there. Is Glass Onion. And when I watched this movie, I was like, I can see why she says this pairs nicely with Glass Onion, because in many ways, at the base heart of this, it is a spy film. It is like good old fashioned 007, James Bond, Mission Impossible spy film. But it almost is like the anti-spy film too, because these guys are so good at what they do, and then at times they are so bad at what they do. And it's played for laughs, but it also makes the film just seem more unique, because you're expecting these different spy moments to happen, but then it like kind of almost subverts it, similar like what you would see in like Glass Onion or Knives Out. Like, and what if there are two moments that stick out in my head was like one where they try to like break into the fence, and one guy has like the clippers and the other guy has the laser, but then when they get to the door and try to undo the lock, the guy can't undo the lock, and they keep messing up, and they're like one up each other. They break into the safe, and he's like, "Did you turn off the alarm?" And and Henry Cavill's answers with so much confidence, "There is no alarm," and then it goes off. So it's like, okay, so they have these like funny moments where they show that these guys are really, because they are really good. Like when the movie opens with them trying to kill each other, and I forgot that Armie Hammer was in this movie, and I didn't recognize him immediately at first. So when I see Henry Cavill going against Armie Hammer's character in the opening scene where he's like shooting at the car and stuff, I thought that he killed the guy. I was like, yo, that was smart. That was cool. And then you look in the car and you see that he faked getting killed so that he could try to trick him into walking up to him. So I was like, yo, okay, these guys are both good. Then I realized, oh, he's the other main character. But it shows they are really good at what they do, but at the same time, they are really bad at what they do. So, oh, and the last thing I thought was a nice little touch when Henry Cavill gets drugged, and he's just really plays it cool, talking about like the fact that he's been drugged, goes around the room and starts like getting pillows. And fluffing them up. And then as the audience, you're like, what are you doing? And then eventually that lady, she looks at him and says, what are you doing? He's like, last time this happened to me, I fell and hit my head really hard, so I'm just gonna lay here. And he just lies down and goes to sleep, and I'm like, this is great.
Yeah.
This is like, I love this. So yeah, no, that's the thing. It's a really fun movie as well.
It's humorous, and I mean, I also gotta say, like, I did have a good time watching it. It was really funny, but I also thought it was like quite beautifully shot. And like, again, like I mentioned, there are choices that are made that I think really stand out to me. For example, like when he opens the safe and the door opens, the safe starts on Henry Cavill, like the shot on the safe.
Yeah, I remember.
It's like on the door of the safe, so you can see the safe and you can see Henry Cavill, and then it opens and then it ends on Armie Hammer, and I'm like, that was well done, because you see their reactions when the door opens and not what's inside. And like just it being on the door and like it perfectly lining up from one shot to the other shot, it just good stuff. And there's like little bits of that throughout the film where you're like, that was really beautiful.
So pretty.
So pretty. And like it's hard to I mean, there's not a lot of films that I can say that like we've seen and reviewed where like I actually really thought that you know, the way that it was shot was like recognition. I can give recognition to, you know. I think like the only other one that really I can think of that stands out to me is Rogue One, because that was like it was pretty to look at, and I feel like this movie, maybe not that much, but parts of it was pretty to look at. And one of my favorite scenes is when they're escaping.
I knew you were going to bring that up. I was thinking to myself, I want to talk about this, but I think she's about to talk about this. Yes, go for it.
when they're escaping and like they're on a boat and they're doing their like buddy cop thing, and this is when they first start like kind of learning to work together. And Henry Cavill falls off the boat that Armie Hammer's driving, and then he just kind of he's like, all right, I'm just gonna swim to shore, and then he gets into this car, and then he's like, oh, there's like booze in here, and then there's like a picnic basket in the car, and he was like, there's a very nice sandwich here, and he's like eating the sandwich, and while like he's just chilling and having a meal and everything, you can see in the background
No, you
like,
see it through the reflection in the window because
oh,
he's looking. The camera's on him. And you
yeah,
see it through the reflection of like the windshield
yeah, and there's like the yeah, or was it
or
like
the
a
mirror or
mirror?
something. It's like a
Yes.
mirror or something. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can see all of that happening, and he's just like enjoying his meal while like Army's like going back and forth being pursued by the bad guys, I guess. And then like I don't know, and then there's it's just like music, he's listening to the radio, and it's
Hmm.
just one of my favorite scenes of that movie.
I mean, the whole sequence is great because, yeah, like you said, they find these really interesting ways to like tell their story through the shots that they're taking. Because, yeah, we're not looking at the action. Any other movie where we would see the action happening with Armie Hammer on the boat, but now once we got in that car, we're just with Henry Cavill and his like him just taking a moment, and we see the action through the reflection because it's not that important. What's important is that he's like, I just need a minute. And we see the boat like explode and stuff through the reflection. And he almost leaves. Like he actually drives away. And like that's the whole point. Like he's leading up to the moment just like, I'm tired and this is dumb. I'm just gonna go home. And then he stops and decides, you know what? I'm gonna go back. And then he drives it onto the top of the boat to beat the people that were like that were chasing after Armie Hammer. Um and it's great. And then even when he's going underwater, they show him roll up the window and he's underwater in the car waiting, and then he's like, okay. And then he rolls down the window and all the water comes in. And so like yeah, there's just like some really, really cool sequences like that in the movie. And that leads to like one of my other favorite parts of the movie where they're rushing to get back so that he can get back to his room before the woman comes and discovers that he wasn't there because she just found out they had been robbed. And so like him and Armie are just running up the steps to get there in time. I love that so much.
Yeah, I think like part of the reason why I think it's so interesting is because we're kind of getting to see a point of view of like two different perspectives in a movie where
Mm-hmm.
like normally what we would be watching is what's happening to Armie Hammer because that's where all the action is.
Mm-hmm.
But instead we get to see like and I can imagine in a different movie we're watching the boat chase and all the gunfighting and the action and the cool stunts and stuff like that, and all of a sudden a truck comes and then it
Mm-hmm.
lands on the thing. Like I can easily see that being like a different movie, but instead we
Right.
kind of get like all of that encompassed into one, and we get this special little moment of Henry Cavill
Mm-hmm.
having a picnic in a car that he's basically stealing from someone else. Um,
Which also, why did that person leave all
a
of
whole
that fresh
picnic,
food?
a nicely made sandwich just happens to be in the truck.
Also, because there's funny moments like that where I'm like, I wonder if this is like why people didn't like it because they thought this was stupid. But like when he gets back to his room and the girl gets there to see if he's there, like she breaks into his room, you hear the toilet flush, and then he walks out with his a toothbrush in his mouth. So I was just like, were you using the restroom and brushing your teeth at the same time? I was like, this is kind of dumb, but I'm with it
I
because
mean,
it's funny.
people do that.
I'm sure. But it was just great because, like, I don't know if you've ever heard of the movie Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, but it reminded me of watching that movie, which was like with Steve Martin and Michael Caine, where they're both kind of like con men, but they're both have different styles of being con men, and then they have to figure out how to work together. So, and they don't want to work together. So, like, and that's what this reminded me of. They don't want to work together, but they're both competent at what they do and supposedly the best in their fields. And at moments you get to see them being the best in their fields. So I think that they played really well off of each other. I really enjoyed seeing them work together. And even more like Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, there is a third character that is a female that you find out is also possibly in its top. Spoilers for Dirty Rotten Scoundrels, which is a movie that came out in like the 80s or 90s or something. But anyway, the point is that there's a female character in there that you think isn't in on everything and doesn't know what she's doing. Then you find out, oh, wait a second, she absolutely does know what she's doing, and she's just as competent as these guys are. And that's what happens with this movie too, when you find out Alicia Vikander is also working for the British Secret Service. So there's so many there's so much overlap. So for me personally, I think I was also more primed to like this movie because of all of these elements that I like from another movie that I also enjoy. Plus, I also really like Henry Cavill. Like I've slowly started loving him more and more. And watching him in this movie and seeing how different his acting is in this from Man of Steel, from Witcher, I'm like, even from Mission Impossible, I'm like, okay, no,
Yeah.
he actually can act.
He's a good actor.
Yeah, because these are different characters. Like these are completely different personalities. He's not playing himself over and over again. This is something completely different. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I have a lot more love and respect for him. Like I had some anyway, but even more after seeing this movie and seeing how different this role was from anything else I've seen him in. It's like, okay, this is cool.
100%. That is exactly what went through my mind when I watched this movie too. I was just like, wow, Henry Cavill is a very diverse actor because like I thought he was like cool and everything, where Man of Steel and then Witcher, like you said, but they're both like kind of similar. But this character is like completely different, and this is a completely different genre. It's not like yes, this is an action movie, but it's more of a comedy. I think it's like a buddy cop thing, right?
It really is.
And it's very different. Like I could easily see like someone else playing this role, but he fit into it just fine. And he even did like the old like talkies accent and stuff.
Yes, he did.
Which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, and the movie actually had me worried for a second because so this movie is kind of like a mainstream Guy Ritchie, which can be met with different successes. Like if you look at Guy Ritchie's old films, there's a kind of grit to them that doesn't feel like something you would see in like more Hollywood type films. But as he started getting more and more famous, his movies started to feel more and more Hollywood. Like by the time you get to see Sherlock, I think it's called Sherlock. I think maybe it's just called Sherlock Holmes, but the one with Robert Downey Jr. because that was Guy Ritchie too. You see that and you're like, okay, it's still a fine movie, but it feels more Hollywood than we've seen of his older stuff. And there's parts of that in this where it feels like a lot. I can feel the Hollywood sensibilities in there, but like at the same time, when you look at the editing, which we don't normally see in most Hollywood movies, like this, it's a style. I think we see it a little bit, but not nearly as much. It's not nearly as frequent in most movies. But then also like with the way he does some of his comedy for scenes, like when the guy that's torturing them ends up being killed when they're trying to decide what to do with him in the background. Like that's something you would see in a Guy Ritchie film to just basically mute the point of what they were trying to do. But it got me worried because people get killed in Guy Ritchie films when you don't expect it. And so when Henry Cavill got captured, I thought they were going to kill him for real because I was thinking of Guy Ritchie's other movies, and I was like, "Oh, don't you kill this man? Don't you kill this man?" And I was very happy that he did not die. But I was like, I thought for sure that they were gonna kill his character, so I was very happy that they didn't.
Yeah, it didn't seem like that kind of movie. So, yeah.
But the last thing that I was gonna say was that the part that I think I'm the most disappointed with for the movie is the ending. Because I felt like so Henry Cavill gets the device and Armie Hammer finds out that he has it, and then it's leading to this like final confrontation, and then they seem to like make peace over it, but they don't decide what they're actually going to do with it. When Hugh Grant's character shows up, he sees it sitting there on the table between the two of them, but we don't know what they actually decide. Like I thought, and maybe this is too easy, but I thought that they were going to choose to destroy it, but because they were going to say nobody deserves to have this power. But if it's still there, then I can't believe that Army Hammer's character would still allow for Henry Cavill to take it back to America, knowing that he still has a connection and loyalty to his country, and knowing that it could actually lead to America subjugating Russia in that kind of way. So like I don't see him just letting it go. So I was kind of disappointed that we didn't see a real resolution to it, which to me the easy resolution is that they both decide to destroy it. That way nobody has it. Um, but we didn't get to really see that. So I was kind of confused by the end, and I was like, wait, well, why are they getting along now? Because they still don't have any real reason. I know he gave him the watch, but I don't think that's enough for him to say you can still take this really big, war information, war document. So yeah, that was like probably my biggest
Yeah.
criticism of the movie.
Um, Sorry, I'm laughing because there's this one part with the watch that I thought was really funny, but and I will get to that, but it's funny you say that, like, because I also thought that they were gonna destroy it too, and I actually thought that that's what the fire was on the table in that last shot, but then later I realized that it wasn't that. Um, so I think when I thought they were destroying it, and then I forgot about it after that because then Hugh Grant like comes in and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, I can see that being like a weird because I think in my mind I brush it off because in my mind I made it so that they did destroy it because that did
Yeah.
make the most sense, and I thought I saw them burning it, even though I realized that they didn't. But anyways, the part that I thought about the watch was really funny was it's like so Archie had this watch. His character had this watch. His name is Peril, or that's what he get. That's what Henry Cavill's character calls him. Um, Napoleon Solo.
Yeah, Napoleon Solo.
Cowboy.
Cowboy.
But so Peril gets his watch stolen by the bad guys, and then when they break into that place he sees a guy wearing a watch, and the music gets like super dramatic, and he's like and like I literally gasped when I watched it. I was like, it's the watch, and it was so dramatic. And I think that's why, like, another reason why, like, I like this movie so much is because, like, it's, like, it is a comedy, but, like, it's also serious. Like, it's comedic in the sense that things are taken seriously for silly things. And that's one of the things that, like, I thought was, like, that's a good example of, like, something funny that's happening because it's a little silly thing that's being made very serious and like dramatic, and
Yes.
there's a lot of that stuff in the movie, but I think that's one of my favorite parts,
I mean, he literally knocks the guy out,
and it works
and then finds
out.
well, and he finds out that it wasn't his watch.
Yeah.
That's the joke, right? Like he does
Yeah.
all that, he's getting his watch back, and then it's not even his watch.
Yeah, and then he was like, my father's watch led me to
Yes, the safe.
for us to figure this out. So like, if it wasn't for his father's watch, then they would have never found that locker. So it's
Exactly.
funny. It's so silly. Another
No,
example of them being bad spies.
yes, exactly. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. Oh, and then the last thing that really kind of the last thing I guess that really didn't feel right to me, it felt weird, is that when they end the movie and he says, we're gonna call you, we have a new name for you, and it's pretty appropriate. We're gonna call it Uncle. And he kind of walks off, and I was like, okay, like why are we calling him Uncle? And then in the credits they show you what Uncle stands for, but it didn't land. You know what I mean? It's like I don't. This is one time when I think for Marvel it landed better. I think it was in Iron Man 2 or something when they were talking about their name being the Strategic Homeland, blah blah blah, and they say that throughout the entire movie, and then by the end they say, "Oh yes, we decided to go with something else, Shield. And then it feels good because you're like, oh, Shield, I know it, Shield, blah blah blah. And and I think Man from Uncle is based off of like an old television show, kind of like Mission Impossible or something, or an old movie. So obviously, it's something that is recognizable. But as someone who doesn't have any association with what Uncle stands for, and not having any kind of like allusion to it throughout the film of like we call ourselves this or this is what we're doing and that's what these acronyms are going to be a part of, like when it got to that like mic drop moment, it just felt hollow to me because I was like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what uncle. Why are you calling these two guys and this girl uncle? Like, what? So that's the
Yeah.
other criticisms I would have.
Yeah, it's funny because like I had that same reaction, and then I was like, "What does it stand for?" And I was like, "United Newbies."
You made up your own
Yeah,
headcanon.
committed to something. I don't even remember what it came up with, but I thought it was pretty good.
Should have sent it in. So, but yeah, outside of those things, like for me, like this movie from start to finish was super fun. I really like enjoyed it, and I have to say, like, it just was a really good time for me, and I would definitely recommend it to other people, even Guy Ritchie fans, because it's just um, it's just a fun movie, and it's not exactly the same as Guy Ritchie's other works, but it's pretty. But I still think it's pretty decent. So yeah, I would definitely. I definitely would. I definitely love this movie. Like outside of that one thing about the ending, which is like 120 seconds in like a 2 hour movie.
Yeah, I really liked it. Definitely would recommend it. I'd probably watch it again too because it was really fun.
Exactly. So, but before we get out of here, is there anything else you wanted to say before we move on to our next segment?
Nope. I think that's all for me.
All right, but that's what we thought of The Man from Uncle. Have you guys seen it? Have you seen the original thing that it was based off of? Have you seen Guy Ritchie's other film? Were you like enamored with Henry Cavill in this movie and the other things that been in as we were? Whatever you thought about it, comment below. Let us know. And while you're down there, if you give us a like, share, subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we'll see you all next time.